Happy Monday, everybody. This is my interview with the former heavyweight champion of the world, Mr. Barry Jones. How today, Barry? You're good?
I'm good, mate, but I wasn't heavyweight champion of the world.
I mean, featherweight champion. Sorry, featherweight. My featherweight champion of the world. Yeah.
I wish I was heavyweight. I'd be a lot more richer. I mean, I'd be rich, not a lot richer. I'm not rich, but yeah, a lot more wealthy, of course.
Anyways, Barry, this is thanks for the opportunity. I've been a fan of yours as a commentator. I'll be honest with you, I know you more as a commentator than you did as a boxer. I actually thought you were a commentator. I didn't know you boxed till about 3-4 years ago. I actually thought you were a commentator. I didn't know you actually you're a former champion. You had a boxing record, a good record as well. So I know Barry the boxing station commentator rather than Barry Jones, the former world champion of the world, heavyweight champion of the world. So
that's what I mean. Yeah, it's the same for most people. I think that's how it is. Yeah, that's fine. No?
So interest. Now you're from Cardiff. You're a Welsh boxer. Your passion for boxing, where did it stem from? How did you start boxing? I know that's years and years ago. You've been here for almost 50 years.
Yeah, no, I'm from a big council estate in Cardiff called Ely. It was when it was built, it was the biggest one in Europe at that time. Maybe when was that? Probably the 50s, 40s. So it was huge. So it's a big. So unlike like any rundown place, place that has not a lot of money. Sport's quite a big factor in people's lives, and boxing, boxing being probably the most working class sports of all, meant there was one or two gyms around the area, and I wasn't a huge boxing fan, but I went there at 9-10 years of age, so I wasn't a fan of anything. And also a fan of everything. When you're that age, you're fickle, aren't you? You love everything and then you hate everything in the same breath. So I just went down. I had an older brother, and I just followed him down, and I only stuck with it because I was sort of a hyperactive kid. So I stuck with it for that reason, because other sports where you're not always involved, boxing. So my two favorite sports were and still are boxing and basketball. And they're because you're constantly involved. I know there's other sports that you are involved constantly also, but they were the two sports that endeared me the most. Because you're always, even when you don't have the ball in basketball, you're always moving. There's only five on each side, so you're always constantly moving when you're defending, and there's other things going on around the ball. And boxing, because obviously you're always involved because someone's trying to punch you in the face. So yeah, and that quelled my hyperactive tendencies quite a bit. So that's where, and then obviously I had to make a choice, and I didn't think I was going to be successful at basketball for obvious reasons, and so I went, so I stuck with the boxing.
So when did boxing start from being a hobby to actually, I could potentially make money at this. This could be my full-time job. I can maybe become a champion, maybe British, maybe even world champion. What was that moment?
Well, making money was never a factor for me, and it was never a goal. At some point it became a goal, but it was, and this is not one of these typical stories. This is just the truth. I never cared about money. I never cared about ring walks or doing the right things. I wouldn't even shave my chest. I must have been the only boxer with a hairy chest. The image didn't, all that image to try and sell yourself, to make money, because obviously your image is more important, is almost as important as your ability, more so nowadays than ever before. But even was then, and I was never interested in that. I just wanted to see how good I could be. And if I made money on the way, great. But I always worked throughout my career. So until I won the world title, then I packed my job in. So, but I got to about 14 and I thought, I'm pretty good now. I wasn't quite sure before. And I think about 14, 15, I sort of thought, I might do this for good, I guess. And then once I thought that, school went. School never entered my head again. Education, anything like that never entered my head. Even though I worked when I left school, that was only a chance because the guy across the back had an electrical firm. He said, "You want a job?" And I went, "Yes." And that was it. There wasn't no. I wasn't looking for work. I just wanted to be a boxer.
Were you finding the Welsh boxers on this? Because Welsh has a few boxers. Joe Kazaki, obviously. There's Steve Robertson. There's. Were you finding the Welsh boxing at the time? Because there was actually a few boxings from Wales originally. Were you finding those boxers or?
Yeah, of course. Well, Joe's around my age, so me and Joe won our world titles 2 months apart as it goes. He won his in a more high profile fight than mine in October, and I won mine in December in London. And but me and Steve Robinson grew up in the same street.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was with him the other day, actually. Our old trainer, we both had the same trainer at the end of my career, and all throughout his career and his amateur career, a fellow called Ronnie Rush, and he died, and his funeral was, what day are we on today now? So we're on Monday. So his funeral was Friday, and just gone, which was a sort of a sad and a lovely day as well. So we all the guys from the gym and the whole community came out in force. But Ely's a big, massive place, so for the estate, and everyone was out. It was just packed, and yeah, it was sort of a lovely send off for a lovely guy who found two guys with ability, one more than other, to be honest, and made us both world champions. And so yeah, I was a fan of all Colin Jones. I was a fan of, because he's sort of about 10 years, his career sort of 10 years prior to my pro career. And 7 maybe, I was a fan of anyone, and also Howard Winston, who was a featherweight champion of the world, when being a world champion meant you were very good, not just good. And obviously I was always a fan of them. But I'm an 80s kid, even though I was born in the 70s. I'm an 80s kid, really. So Leonard was my favourite.
Oh,
above all, Leonard, Sugar Ray Leonard, above everyone else, was the guy I wanted to be. In every single way, I wanted to be Sugar Ray Leonard.
My boxing inspiration, other than Ali, was Naz. I was a massive Naz fan. I love Naz.
Well, Naz is the same age as me, so obviously I don't really. It's hard to fall in love, even though you can have admiration. Naz was brilliant, and he was a phenomenon, and you might never see the person like that again at that weight. But it's hard to fall in love with people when you're around. I wasn't a rival in Naz's. I'm not saying that, but I mean, because you're around the same weight and the same age and the same time, then you don't have that same admiration as you would when you're a kid. Idolize. You don't idolize when you're an adult. You don't idolize anybody because you're an adult. But
just curious, being from Wales, what's your opinion about David Pearce? Would you reckon he could have been heavyweight champion? Was he not good enough to become a champion?
Well, David was too small to be a world champion. That's the truth. But he would have been a hard night's work for anybody. He was. There's tough, and then there's Dave Pearce. That's pretty much where you put him. So I think he would have been a hard man.
What if he made him so iconic? Because even though he never became world champion, he had it was quite popular, and he even has a statue from his own town. He has a
there's a statue in Newport, which went up a couple of years ago, I think. Just to everyone loves to try it, and we almost fall in love with failure in this country just as much as we do success. It's how you fail. And he wore his heart on his sleeve. He was never in a dull fight. He gave everything. He gave his whole self when he got in.
Yeah, he was a fallback fighter. He would fight to the death.
And you can't help but fall in love with that. And I have total respect for that. And that's why people still talk highly of him now. And you get that with him. He's not the only one. You get that with a lot of fighters. You look back with maybe rose-tinted glasses a little bit because you just remember what
I'm fascinated by his story. Was it epilepsy? What was the condition that forced him to retire?
Yeah, I think it was something like that, but I couldn't comment. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, it's a sad chain of events, bless him. But yeah.
So when you because you so in terms of technique, was your lack of boxing punch power the reason why you focused more on your speed and focused more on your technique? Because you're more a technician in the ring than a brawler.
Yeah. You're doing well to say I can't punch, but
unfortunately, I did my research.
Like it's gonna sound weird. I'm not a puncher. But I could punch my weight. But I had my first pro trainer, Pat Thomas, was a double British champion. Was a lovely guy and did his best for me. But he had this idea of my style, of how I would box, and it just sort of, and like you should do, I threw myself into my trainer and believed whatever he told me. And he didn't do me any wrong. He took it to his best. He genuinely believed I'd be a world champion, and he was right. But I didn't do it with him. But he sort of changed. As an amateur, I was stopping people left, right, and centre as an amateur, ironically. But especially with body shots. But as a pro, he's changed my style. I'm dancing around using the jab more on the move. I used to be sort of a slightly aggressive counter puncher as an amateur, not aggressive, but slightly more aggressive. And as a pro, you had me dancing around, not doing none of that. So once you lose confidence,
when you say boxing, is it common that you have boxers that are both, you know, power punchers or technicians, or is it usually you're either one or the other? Usually a power puncher.
No, you can have it all. Of course, you can have it all. I just think, you know, if you have natural God-given power, especially from a young age, you tend not to learn the fundamentals as much as maybe someone else has to, because you don't need to. It's like you get a freak of nature who's like, you know, like a featherweight who's 6'3" or something like that, some mad thing like that. He doesn't have to learn some techniques as well as I'd have to, because his reach and his height and his openness will get him over the line most of the time. So you tend to have a deficiency in your ability is masked on your awkwardness. So if you have power, you tend to find with power punchers, not always, once they can't hurt you, they fall apart. Because I'm not saying they can't take a punch, but I mean literally they don't know how to defend themselves, and they don't know how to.
Yeah, I think that was Wilder's problem as well. I think Wilder, if Wilder had less power, he'd probably be a better boxer overall. Because he had that right hand from God, therefore he didn't.
But he would rather have the power than the technique, because it's got him over the line. So and also you work on your weaknesses, but you're always honing your strengths, and you're born with what you're born. You know, I had fast hands and fast feet. So somewhere down the line, I stopped working on trying to be stronger and just concentrated on that. Whether that was right or wrong, but it worked for me to a certain level. You know, got me to a world title, but it wasn't enough to stay there, because you need more than just being good at one thing to be a world champion, or certainly to stay at world level. You need more than being good at one thing. You can have one really good night to see and become a world champion, but to have the consistency of a Carl Zaghi and others, you have to be good at lots of things. Not everything, but almost everything. And that's how it is.
That's why I'm impressed by Paul Manarji. Paul Manarji had a good career, despite having a very fair-fisted, not known for power, but he still managed to become a 2-weight world champion for a guy who can't punch.
He had more power. He had more power than people gave him credit for. And I always say, if you can punch, as long as you can punch hard enough to stop them walking through you.
Yes.
When you have a good boxing brain and you have good feet and good hands, you know, and you have to have those three things. If you can punch hard enough to stop someone walking through you, it can be enough to a certain level. There's always a level over the top of you that won't work. And he found his level a few times, but it was at the very highest, of course. So yeah, he did tremendously well. You know, he's a fantastic fighter.
This might sound cliche, Barry, but did you always believe in yourself? Did you always think I'll become a world champion? That I just need that.
No. We didn't dream so high back then. Whatever people tell, there's certain fighters, you know. I always go back to Carl Zaghi because I know him and he's Welsh, but that he always believed he'd be a world champion, and he always believed he was unbeatable, and that's just how some people are like that. But most of us, and even people who've been successful, you just think, you know, my ambition was to be a British champion. I wanted to be that. And then you go from there. Once you get over that line, you pick another goal and you go up like that. And that's a sensible and more achievable way of ticking the boxes. Just focus on that. Don't worry about being a world champion, because that's a million miles away. The problem we have nowadays, everyone wants to be a world champion, and it's a bigger fall when you don't make it, because most of them, almost all of them, won't make it, unfortunately. So
yeah,
no, I thought I was good. I knew I was good. No, that's not like an idiot. Obviously, I was good. I knew I was good. How good I was, I didn't know.
Okay.
So
did you ever fight for the British title, or the European title?
No, I never boxed for the British, Commonwealth, or European title, but I beat all three champions.
Wow.
It's just a weird. The 90s was a weird time, because it was the start of these intercontinental titles. You know, all the shit we have now. It was my generation was the start of that. Even though the 90s was a great 10 years of real quality fights.
Okay.
It was also that was the start of all the shit as well, to be fair.
Okay, because on your record, you boxed, you said you fought Justin Murphy back in 1995 for the eliminator.
I boxed Neil Swain, and he won a Commonwealth title a couple of years after I beat him. And then I boxed a fella called I boxed a fella in my third fight called Michael DeBenny, who was an Olympian, and he won the British title after I beat him. And then I also boxed a kid called Afi DeGelti, who won the European title. He was actually my best win, as it turns out. After I beat him, he won the European title. So good. The first kid I boxed was 3-0 with 2 knockouts, I think. So I sort of had a good apprenticeship. So I never beat any world beaters, but I beat good quality opposition. So I learned, when I was in a bigger fight, there was no nerves or panic about how I was going to react, because I'd already been in competitive fights from the get-go, which helped.
Did you think you were ready when you got the world title chance against Wilson? Is it Palacio?
Palacios.
Palacio.
No, I didn't think. I got a phone call from Ernie Fossey, who's dead now, but he was Frank Warren's matchmaker, and he said, "Do you want to fight for a world title?" And I said, "Yes." I didn't ask when, where, how much, who, or by the way, what weight, because I was a featherweight who was going down to super bantamweight because I wasn't big enough. I wasn't big enough for featherweight at the time, and the world title shot. I was boxing at featherweight because I wanted to be featherweight champion, because back then there was only about 10 super bantamweights in the country, so that didn't really appeal to me. I wanted to be featherweight champion, like a British featherweight champion, like Howard Winston and stuff. So that was my ambition at the time. So I turned pro at featherweight, but I was weighing 8 stone 11, 12s, 10s, and I could have made super bantam. And it would have been hard, but I could have made it. And so I boxed at featherweight, and I got offered to fight a super feather, which so really 2 weights above where I belonged. So I just said yes. I didn't ask any questions. If someone offers you a world title fight, you take it. That's what I thought, and it didn't matter, because if I lose to a world champion.
And how do you feel when you got that decision of both of them? Was it one of the best nights ever in your life? How do you feel?
Yeah, it's a lifetime ambition, isn't it? You can't put a feeling on it. You can't. It's just the weirdest thing. It's almost an anticlimax, to be honest. It's a weird thing. It's the best thing in the world. No, it's unbelievable. It's better. The only thing is seeing your children born can only top that. That's the truth. But that is everything you've dreamed of as a kid. 10 years of age in my bedroom, shadow boxing, 10 I was Sugar Ray Leonard. That was that night. That was my night there, and it wasn't as dramatic or as fancy or as good as Leonard's, but to me, it was everything. So yeah, that was, and to share it with my friends who travelled up in coaches to come and see me just before Christmas at the time, it was in '97, was just it took a while to sink in. I mean, like a long time, weeks. I still couldn't get it, I couldn't believe it. So much that I went to bed about 4 o'clock in the morning, and then woke up at like 9 or something, 8. And I wouldn't open my eyes. I was just looking for the belt with my feet. I knew it was on the bed. Wow. And I didn't want to open my eyes, but I didn't want to believe. I just couldn't believe it was real. And then when I felt the metal and the leather on my feet, I was up jumping about and what's going on? Like phoning my dad up. See what I did last night, Dad? It was that sort of thing, you know what I mean? See what I did last night? That's weird, isn't it? And it changed everyone's life really for a short period of time. We were all, you go from nowhere to somewhere. That's the beauty of boxing. Through all the shit and the crap that it gives us, nights like that, it takes a kid from nowhere who doesn't have everything. And and I'm not the best story, by the way. I'm not the best story in my street. Steve Robinson's story is better than mine. But it takes you from nowhere to being somebody like that. And it's a beautiful thing.
So how did you feel? So it must have been really hard for you. You fought for your title, spending your whole life's work, but then you couldn't fight for the title. Was it because you had a 2-year layoff at the ring?
Yeah. It was the start of MRI scans, which are more details than CT scans for the brain scans, and there was a change in my scan, and they didn't know what it was. So the boxing world did the right thing, and they withheld my license until further investigation. But at the time, Spencer Oliver, then I think the month after, collapsed in the ring and almost died. And Michael Watson was suing him from what happened maybe 18 months before, maybe 2 years before. 2 years before would have been, when they against Chris Eubank, and he was suing the boxing board for that. So there was a lot of pressure on the boxing board. And I just think at the time, giving me my license back, even though there was no proof there was anything wrong with me, was just the press they didn't need.
Okay.
But God forbid something happened to me in the ring, even if it was totally unrelated. to what the condition that I maybe had. If something would have happened to me in the ring, then that gets highlighted, and then they're done. The boxing world's finished. But I went to see a brain surgeon, not because I wanted to box again, because I wanted to know what was wrong with me. And he said, I think you're fine. I know you're fine. That's pretty much what it was. It cost me like 1,500 quid to go and see him for like an hour. And then, which back then was a fortune, and for me, a mega fortune. And yeah, and once he said I was fine, then I went for my license. I got my license back. I had to get a barrister's and all the rest of it. And I know Frank Warren gets a lot of stick, but he paid for all that.
Oh, so Frank Warren was your promoter as well at the time?
At the time he was, yeah. Well, Sports Network was my promoter, Frank was my manager.
Okay.
Which is the same company, really. It's a conflict of interest, but that's how they get it wrong there. But yeah, but to be fair to him, you know, like you get slagged off, and I understand, justifiable sometimes, but and I wasn't worth a penny for Frank, by the way, you know, and to be honest. And Frank at that time pretty much run boxing. He was the king.
Yeah, definitely. The 90s was his decade. You had Bruno, Nas, you had Kawasaki, and everybody.
Oh yeah, he owned it. Like, you know, he owned it, to be honest. And so he didn't need me, but he did. But he didn't need me, but he did the right thing, and he helped me get my license. But once he knew I was fine, then he paid for the barrister and paid for the solicitors and got my license back. So, you know, I owe him for that.
Because you actually could have in the talks of fighting Julian Lawson, the French guy.
I went up to Paris for the press conference and everything for that. Yeah, it was. I would have beat him. On paper, he was a massive favourite, but I just think stylistically he was suited for me. He lost to Stefan Zoff like a year or two later, who was sort of not too dissimilar from me. Okay. So I always thought, because when you can't punch, or you're not known as a puncher, people think you can take a punch. That's the automatic assumption. If you can't hit, I'll just walk through him and you'll knock him out. But I could take a punch, and I'd never been on the floor in my life until my last fight. So sparring, training, amateur, pro, never been on the floor. So I knew I could take a shot. I knew how to ride a shot, and I was fit. And I was through lots of punches, and I was tenacious enough to get over the line. So you think it's an easy night, just because I can't hurt you, or also I could hurt you, by the way. I just didn't have the instinct to finish you off, and I didn't have that crunching power to really hurt you, because I was always thinking about something else. So by the time I threw a punch, I'm always thinking what I'm doing next. So what happens then is when you throw the punch and you're thinking, your feet are moving, you're gone, so you don't get the impact. I'm always punching, moving back. But I think I fancied I would have beat him. I was up, we were going to Paris. I was looking forward to it. It was going to be like a 20,000, I think, crowd, because he sold tickets. He was a real big ticket seller. And it was a big night for me. That was going to be my coming up night in my mind.
That definitely made you.
He might have walked through me and stopped me in 3 rounds. Who knows? But you know, that my feeling was that I could have done a job in it. But it never happened. And I'm too old to care about that anymore. But at the time, it was catastrophic to me, because all I knew was being a boxer. And then once that was gone, it was a crisis of confidence with my identity a little bit.
So that fight, your final fight, fortunately, with the stoppage with Fighters. How do you feel when you got knocked down? Was that the first time in your career you got knocked down multiple times?
It was, yeah. So I put him down in the first 20 seconds, which was a great start. And then he put me down with the right hand, which I never felt. Just didn't see it. You know, he rolled underneath, come back with the right hand, caught me right on the chin and dropped me. And I wasn't hurt, but I did the right. I was quite happy. I was gutted. I mean, I did the right thing. I didn't jump up. I took the knee, took the count for 8, and I got up. And that's what you should do. Even if you're not hurt, that's what you should do. Just don't take any risks. You don't know if you feel you're not hurt, but your legs might be unsteady. So I did the right thing. And every time I did the right thing. But then he hit me with the left hook to the body, and he just smashed my ribs to pieces in the first round. Honest to God. Every time he hit me to the body, it felt like someone was stabbing me. It was just horrific. It was just so much pain. Like I couldn't even quantify it. It was just awful. And then I was just on survival mode for another 7.5 rounds. But 6.5 rounds, I should say. But it's a weird feeling, that fight, because it was my proudest moment in my whole career. That fight, as strange as it, I took a hiding. I mean, literally, he battered me like I owed him money. Like, and most people would be embarrassed by it. That's how much he beat me up. But I'm proud of it because I took a hiding and I never stopped trying. And he put me down 6 times, but I got up 6 times. So, you know, I didn't bottle it. I didn't stay down when I could have easily. I didn't look for a way out. And you don't know how you're going to react when you're in a fight. It's okay getting hurt when you're in a fight, you can win, or getting hurt when you're winning a fight, because your mind says, you know, you can see a way out, you can see a way through it. But when you're getting beat up every round, except for I won 2 rounds when he took a little time off on 4th and 5th, and I boxed well and I won 2 rounds, but that was it. But when you're losing everything and you're getting your ass handed to you like every second of every round, the will to not want to quit, you don't know if you got it. And I didn't know if I had it, but I had it. So I'm proud that I had it. For the first time in my whole amateur professional career, I had to show I had a bit of ball. That's what I felt. I'd probably shown it in the past, but here I had to show, because I knew after 4 rounds I wasn't going to win the fight. I knew inside. I knew there was no way. He put me down 4 times already. You know it's a hard night when you knock someone down, but you still lose that round by 2 points. Then you know that's a horrific night. You're in for the worst night of your life.
What made you?
I was done.
What was it? Because of fear of a health problem? What made you call it a day?
No, I was done. I was done. I even into that, I sort of knew before that fight that I'd finished with boxing. That those 2 years or 18 months I had out, I had a contract for defenses. That's how they tie you up back then. But they were good. It was good money. It was a lot of money. It was life-changing money for me, forever, by the way. And I would have. And by the way, back then, 2 years, you would have got 5 fights in 2 years back then. Okay. That's the thing. You would have got through 5 fights. People thought box more often. So I couldn't get my head round. All that money was mine, in my mind. Do you know what I mean? That's my money. All those fights I never had, but I thought because I signed a contract, that money belonged to me, and I couldn't get my head around it. So now I'm not doing it for that. I'm not doing it for ambition or for love or for just seeing how far I can go. I'm doing it for money, solely for money, because I'm playing catch up in my mind.
Thinking about SuperFeather, would it not been possible to move down to fight Naz and Wayne McCullough?
Well, I could have, but I'm not going to get a fight with Naz, because who am I? I got nothing to get. All I got, the best I could have hoped for, when I won the title in '97, I get a defense or 2 under my belt, okay. and then I'm a sacrifice for Naz to move up to super feather and become a 2-weight world champion. That would be my best hope, realistically, because I'm not a selling point for Naz. Though there is a selling point, because my grandfather's from the Yemen. I know you wouldn't see it to look at me, but he is from the Yemen. And so Naz being from the Yemen, we could have sold that somewhere down the line. I could have took my grandfather to the press conference and gone, you know, my grandfather said he's going to beat you up. And I only found out recently, actually, that I think my grandfather knew the Yaffai's grandfather.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, they were in Cardiff. They moved to Cardiff because Cardiff was a big dock back many years ago. So we had a big influx of Yemeni people and also Caribbeans.
Okay.
Come to Cardiff, yeah. So so it was quite an eclectic group of, especially the dock, the Bhutan group's called. And I don't know what it's called now, the Bay, Cardiff Bay. It's all posh now, but yeah. So it was we had a lot. We were quite diverse early on, like in the 50s and stuff. So, yeah. So yeah, my grandfather's from Yemen, so that was the only thing. That was the only selling point for that. But my style and my ability compared to Naz's on paper, it was an easy night for him. So okay. I was hoping I won that fight, but that fight again, like you go into every fight thinking you can win. But more importantly, I get 3 times the amount of money for any other fight for that fight. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? That's my cash.
You still how old are you? 25, 26 when you retired?
Yeah, my last fight, I retired at 26, but my last fight 25. Yeah.
Yeah. That's very young for boxers. That's still.
I wasn't good enough. I wasn't good enough to do it. I wasn't good enough to box if I didn't love it. Because
you understand. Some boxers can be so good that you have to put the effort to become world champions. So boxers have to put in the effort to maintain the range.
Yeah, and also, you know, like I love the sport. So that Freitas fight, even though I knew I was bitter. I was bitter. I was never a bitter person growing up, but I was bitter. It changed me. Like, I was bitter and angry, frustrated about what happened to me because it shouldn't have happened to me. I still believe that. I think I was a sort of a scapegoat. No, they didn't target me out. But it was just the way things fall for you sometimes. Unfortunately, wrong place at the wrong time. We've all been there in other factors in life, and that's what it was there, unfortunately. And I just don't know. But that Freitas fight, I would have given my life. I wouldn't give my life, but I gave everything I had. I gave everything I had for that fight. No, I don't love the sport anymore. I don't think I could have done it again. So if I'm in another hard fight, do I just give in? I can live myself. I could never throw a fight. I could never quit. But if I'm only in it for the money, where's my motivation? You know what I mean? I don't know. Yeah. So I didn't like it anymore. I didn't want to be around it. It's not nice. It's not a night. There's some lovely people in boxing. There's some great, fantastic characters and people you fall in love with. But it's not a nice sport to be around at all, to be honest, because it's all more. It seems more now, but it's always been all money motive. Everything's money. What can I get off you? What can you give me? What can you do for me? And maybe life's like that, but we only know what we see. And boxing's very much a sport. Again, once you're no good to anybody, then you're no good to anybody, and that means no one gives a fuck about you.
Will you ever attempt to give it another shot? Or was that bitterness too much for you to overcome?
I started training on this makeshift gym in West London, like a little keep fit place, and and I went sparring with Ted Bammy, who was European champion at the time, and I think Ashley Theopane. Apparently I was told I sparred with him. I can't remember. Maybe I did, but I didn't know who he was back then because he wouldn't have been anybody back then. Anyway, I was handling people quite fine, but I thought about it, and I sort of got down to about 9-8, and but I was 31 at the time, and I just thought, and again, I woke up one day and I thought, Robert Smith, the boxing board, because I inquired about my license, because I thought, I hadn't failed the brain scan. I might apply for my license again. And he just said, are you sure? He wrote a little letter and he said, are you sure? And that stuck with me. Are you sure? And I thought, yeah, am I sure? What am I doing it for? For the money. That's what it was. I was working. I was boxing. I'd left boxing behind. I used to go to the only shows I go to with Carl's. I'd watch it on telly. I'd only go to Carl's Aggie shows. I wouldn't go to any of the show. Wouldn't go to any of the boxing. No one from boxing spoke to me. The day I walked away from boxing, I never heard from my management. I was warning people. I never heard from anyone again. No one even phoned me up to say, are you still boxing? There was nothing. Just you haven't contacted us. We won't contact him, I guess. So I didn't officially retire. I didn't put a statement out that a big retirement. I just walked away, and nobody cared.
Yeah.
That's not. Listen, I'm not feeling sorry for myself here, but that's just how it was. Unfortunately, it's just that's how it is. Because they're busy, they're moving on to the next thing, the next show, and that's how boxing is. It's a sport that doesn't wait around for anybody, and I guess that's the same with everything, I would imagine.
So how did your transition to the other side of boxing, the whole journalism and commentating side, come about? What made you say, okay, I'm not, my days as a boxer are done. However, I've got a talent, I've got a good voice, I'm very articulate and well spoken. I can give this boxing commentator thing a try.
Yeah, I didn't think about it. I didn't think any of that. I didn't think I had any of that. Box Nation I've been out of boxing now for my last 10, 11 years. I've been out of boxing. And so I was done. And my story is probably more unique than anybody's, because most people retire and go straight into doing some sort of TV or radio work, and then either build up to get a big job or walk into a big job, like the Carl Frampton has. But mine never. I went out. I disappeared. I didn't have no interest in doing anything with boxing. But then Box Nation started, and pretty much they needed guests who they didn't have to pay. So they were pretty much getting every obscure fighter from the 90s, pretty much. And then my friend was a friend of Bunt, Steve Bunt. So I sort of half knew Steve from when I was boxing. He was a journalist, of course, for the paper, more than a TV guy back then. And then my mate kept saying, Bunty wants to run a show. And I kept saying, no, I don't want to be on this fucking show. I don't want to do it. I don't want to have that feeling of my 15 minutes of fame or whatever it is. I don't want that feeling, because it's that being on box, being a world champion or being on telly. that rush of euphoria, and it feels great. And then you have to go back to your normal life, which I've done already before. And it's a hard transition. That's why boxers, so many, suffer when they retire, whether they're famous or not, because the transition is you go from people wanting to know you every second of every day of your life, cheering your name, to people just going, all right, mate, or not even that. And that I didn't want to have that feeling of yes, and then go back to my job the next day. So I kept saying no, and in the end, I said yes, and I went on there, and then Jim Bentley, the producer, said, "You want to come back?" And I live in London area now. I have for the last sort of 22 years, and though I haven't lost my accent, I don't think, luckily or unluckily, whichever you look at it.
Yeah, you definitely very Welsh indeed. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I've been there. I didn't live too far from West London, and where the studio was in Shepherd's Bush, and I was close, so I was convenient. They were using Paul Smith mainly and Enzo Mack, but one lives in Swansea, one lives in Liverpool. So yeah, they were using me for the German shows mainly because they're off tube, which is you sit in a sound booth with a TV camera, with a TV, and a microphone. You do it pretending you're ringside, and then I would do them because I was like 10 minutes, 25 minutes, half an hour from the studio, and it just built up from there. And then somehow they wanted to use me, and I never pushed for it. I just I was happy to get a couple of gigs a month. It made a big difference in my pay packet.
So what drove your passion? What was there a fight in particular? Was there a moment said, okay, maybe this is my calling now. Maybe boxing wasn't my calling, but maybe me being a box journalist is what I was meant to be.
Yeah, no, I don't know. So I've always loved boxing. Even when I was away from it, I always loved it. But I always watched it on telly. But of course I've always been involved in stuff. But yeah, it was the closest you could get to fighting. That's why all ex-boxers want to do it now, because you can make a living without getting punched in the head, which is lovely, by the way. But it's the closest feeling you can get to having that buzz of being a champion. I've been ringside some of the biggest fights in the last sort of 15 years, and I've been lucky. I missed out on some as well, but I've been to it's just been unbelievable. I've actually experienced more stuff since I've retired on boxing through boxing than I did when I was fighting, because the shows I would go to would pale in significance to Golovkin and Canelo. The two of those I did, or Wilder Fury, the first two of those I did. They were just events you just couldn't get your head around.
And did you ever consider being a trainer or manager in boxing?
No, I did the train, not a manager, to be honest, but I did a trainer for a while, but you've got to commit your time to your life to it, and I don't think I could, to be honest, and that's the reason why I haven't done it. I wouldn't mind going. I want to be the guy I want to be like an Angelo Dundee, who swoops in for the last sort of 4 weeks, 3 weeks of camp, and takes over, pretty much like a fucking part timer, pretty much. Yeah, I'd like to help out with technical stuff, but then who would use you, because you're just stepping on someone else's toes, aren't you? But so I think I got an insight into some of that, but I don't know. But,
and how's boxing changed from the 90s to now? In what way? So many changes.
So excuse me. It's massively different, to be honest. It's like there's more care. Though it doesn't seem like it, but there's more care for the fighter. His well-being. I think the training techniques are a lot easier on the body as well, of course. And there's more science to it as a trainer than ever before, and there's more safety precautions, and all those things are fantastic. But
yeah, I'm fascinated by the self-promoter. I'm fascinated by what Oscar De La Hoya did, what Mayweather did. Their boxers taking their careers in their hands and making themselves the money instead of relying on promoters. Because I think what Mayweather and Oscar De La Hoya did are the first two popular, successful self-promoters. It was just incredible for boxers. It just showed boxers they can become their own bosses.
But they also earned enough money to do it. That's the thing. So it was certainly De La Hoya. I know Mayweather did, but Mayweather started promoting before he doing that mega money. But I mean, De La Hoya at the time in the 90s, De La Hoya was the golden boy. I know that was his moniker, but he generally was the golden boy. He had to he could literally do what he wanted when he wanted. He was earning mega money, and and it's as famous as any. He was a good-looking guy. You know, he had the world at his feet, pretty much. So you know, we had enough money to play around with it. That's the truth, to be honest. Like,
Yeah,
they're all-time greats. The people like that, they're all-time greats. You know, you can't even compare yourself to people like that. Like, you know, people get twisted what they want to be now, kids and stuff. Want to be a featherweight world champion. I want to be this. That's a great to have ambition. But don't
so
look
you
at
believe
this.
you can only be a self-promoter if you're a superstar, basically. If you're a superstar, you have enough leverage, then you can become a promoter. If you're nobody, then no one's going to care to, you know, give you that time and
No,
day.
I'm not saying you can't. No, you can do anything, but it's more difficult. If you don't have that financial backing, promoting is a very difficult thing to do because you know you're losing money without TV. So how would you promote it? I don't know. I couldn't do it. I wouldn't even try it. I wouldn't even know. But like, cause I'm the world's self-promoter. I don't even promote myself. Like, but when you got money, everything's easier when you got money to do. Setting up a business is easier if you got loads of money in the bank because you could just buy the best of everything and advertise everywhere. So that's what I mean by that. And also, when you're a big name, it's easier for you to get a meeting with a TV executive or a sponsor, or you know what I mean. That's what I mean for that. You need a face to know. So if you're the face, then it's easier. Not always easy. It's not like Joe Kawasaki tried it and failed. You know, so it's not a guaranteed success.
Yeah.
No, Joe tried it years ago when his dad was still alive, and it didn't work for him. They probably never committed themselves fully to it, probably, but you know, it's still difficult. It's not easy, but I mean, it's easier. But you can still do it. Listen, if you've got the gift of the gab, and you know, and you can try. Look at this Ben Shalom. I don't even know his name. Look at him. Look how successful he's been. You know, he's been plodding away doing his other shows, in like these shows that don't adhere to me, and now he's promoting on Sky Sports because he knows how to say, he knows how to charm people, and he knows he got a good business model that works. So you know, it's achievable. It's like getting a YouTube
Can it
channel.
work? These in terms of obviously you can speak on this because you originally in Box Nation. These boxing apps, the Zone, can it work, or is it always going to be Sky on pay-per-view? Will boxing always be on pay-per-view format to make money, or can it ever be work on the Zone app?
No, it always be pay-per-view. Now it will, because how would you tell a fighter now? Like, you can't get 15 million now, you can only get 3. That's the problem. Like if the Zone want to keep Canelo, they got to do that. They're doing pay-per-view in America. They have to. That's a model that's worked for 20, 30 years now. So that's where they're stuck with that. Now, once they dipped into that, it's never going to go back, unfortunately, because people are greedy, and you can't blame them. But apps can work. Like Box Nation could have worked. I just don't think it wasn't set up to be a long thing. It was to be fair to Warren and his people. You know, they took a massive gamble there, but they had all these fighters and no TV. So what does he do? And also, BBC had done with boxing. ITV didn't want to know, you know, and you know, he'd already been there. They didn't want to know again because boxing's unpredictable. See, Man United play Liverpool. Even if Ronaldo don't turn up and Salah don't turn up, it's still the team. The game still happens. It's still a good game. You might have your 2 biggest stars. I don't follow football, but I guess they're the ones who don't get the watch, but you're still watching the team. But with boxing, if one of those guys don't turn up, if Amir Khan versus Kell Brook and one of them injures himself walking to the weigh-in,
who are they showing? Actually showed over.
They're showing the rest of the bill's crap. No, I mean, no, compared to what the top of the bill is, or something like that, or Joshua Usyk, and then Usyk breaks his leg walking into the ring. Or the day before when people can cancel the pay-per-view, for instance. You don't get it's an issue. It's a very unpredictable sport with that. So there's the TV.
What do you think boxing was more mainstream in the 90s? Would like to be on ITV and BBC, or is it less mainstream?
Yeah, of course. And it was more mainstream in the 80s and the 70s and the 60s, where you knew every ABA champion. But they're getting bigger crowds now. There's bigger events. I think that's the thing now with sports in general. And this has been going on since the early noughties, I think, where everything's corporate. Now, everything's a big event. We got that American thing about us.
Yeah.
Everything's a huge event. So it's like everyone wants to go see AJ. It's a different crowd who watches Anthony Joshua than people who go watch, I don't know, anyone. And a show in New York, it's a different audience. They're not boxing fans, they're big event fans.
They're pretty much football fans.
I'm not a massive rugby fan. I'm Welsh, I like watching the internationals, but I've watched England play Ireland. I don't live too far from Twickenham. I'm like 5 miles down the road from Twickenham. So I've watched England. I've watched more England matches live than I have the Welsh matches live. To be fair, ever, by the way, rugby, because I'm close and I know someone's got a ticket. And I've watched them play England, Scotland, France, Ireland. I've watched them play Ireland, Scotland, France, and Wales. But, because it's a massive, because it's a lovely occasion. Just be there. It's a great occasion. I don't care who wins out of England and France. I don't give a shit, do I?
This is an interesting question. What makes a boxer superstar? What makes an Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, Amir Khan, or Frank Bruno, or now
6. It's 6'6" for a star. Everyone loves a massive guy. Everyone loves him. I mean, in any
Unless you're Naz.
I gotta make you 6'9", right? Like when we were younger, Peter. He's a good-looking kid. He ain't that good-looking. But look at he's 6'9". We'll go out. I know I'm not tiny, but like everyone wants to talk to him. Everyone wants to talk to him because he's a giant. That's how it is. And in boxing, everyone wants to see a big guy because when they do, they want to see someone knocked out. So it attracts the armchair fan, the basic sports fan who's not a boxing fan,
the casual.
Casual, not even and certainly people who don't even like the sport. Women will want to go and just men who don't really watch boxing, but they see a post of Joshua full of muscles, and like this, and all the girls go, ooh, and the housewives go, ooh, I don't like him. Give me a ticket for that fight. I'll tell my husband, but I love him. And that's how it works. And that's and you get the same with good looking like Gary Stretch would sell tickets back in the 90s because he was a male model. He's an actor, actually, but he's a beautiful looking man. And that's how it worked. Kawasaki to an extent, he didn't sell any tickets, but for a boxer, he was a good looking bloke, and that helped sell. Naz was a phenomenon because he was a little guy who didn't tick those boxes, but he was a showman and arrogant. Eubank, you sell yourself as a persona and you live it out. And so I want to see him get knocked out personality. And until they fell in love with him when he was getting beat, because everyone loves in this country we love a trier and a loser. Just as I said,
what made Mayweather a superstar, the biggest star arguably of all time boxing? Mayweather, what made him
24/7? The HBO 24/7 series made him a superstar. He did it. He did it himself, but his fight, he's a genius of a boxer, by the way, beautiful, absolutely beautiful. But his fights, none of his fights, almost all of his fights, even when he was a super featherweight, when he was the most aggressive, when he was the most excited, even most of those fights wouldn't really make anyone outside of the boxing fan want to queue up to watch him, or certainly buy a ticket, or certainly pay $100.
He wasn't a superstar till he fought Oscar. That was his golden ticket.
Well, because Oscar was the A side on that fight, by the way. That was 2007, I think, something around that time, and then maybe 6, 7, whatever it was. But the 24/7 series, what he did outside the ring became more important than what he did inside the ring, and he realised that I don't think he's academically not clever, but he comes across a bit of a donut at times. But he's intelligent enough, and he has a street smarts to know how to hustle. And he realised early what I have to do to sell this fight. It don't matter what I do in the ring. It doesn't matter what you do in the ring, because once you're in the ring, the tickets have been sold. The pay-per-view's been sold. So the fight can be shit. It's irrelevant. It's only, as long as you sell the fight itself, that might affect the next fight, but it wouldn't with him, because they'd have this 6 weeks of 24/7 series every week with him. They show his opponent, eating rice on the floor with his mum and 7 kids, and no one got paid a side. They all got nothing. We just thought, we want to change our life. I'm over exaggerating, but you feel sorry for him. And you'd have Mayweather then rocking up to his gym at 3 o'clock in the morning with a burger and a cigar and 3 strippers. And you go, and you either go, the young kids would go, oh, I want that life. And the rest of us would go, what a wanker. I hope he gets battered by that lovely, humble man there, just trying to feed his family and his grandmother and his great-great-grandmother and his uncle, and they got a hole in the roof. And, that whole thing. It was polarizing, and that was it. That's what sold the fight. You either want to see Mayweather get battered, or you just think,
definitely.
yeah. So that's what it is, and that's what Naz did it to a certain extent, because everyone wanted to see this little Arab kid get knocked out. That's what it was. Listen, I thought about like loads of Yemenis in Cardiff, but when he boxed Steve Robinson in Cardiff, from Cardiff, everyone loved Steve because he was just the loveliest man, a humble guy who was working in a stock room, became a world champion. Like it's a movie.
Yeah,
it's a
great
movie.
Cinderella Man story.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And he goes from he couldn't sell a ticket to selling out the Cardiff Ice League every fight, and then Cardiff Rugby Ground he sold out, even that. But we love Steve so much that even the Arabs, even the Yemeni people who were in Cardiff were screaming at Naz, hate like just slagging him off. That's so much. But Naz know to wind people up, and that's what he lived it, and he lived for it, and that's how it is. Like, yeah, so it's selling yourself is very important, more so than ever before. Unfortunately.
Well, okay. What made Ricky Hatton a star? Because he was a little man that he was the first of his kind. Because
Ricky's the last working class hero.
Yeah.
In sport, I think. Well, last working class hero in sport. He did it the way that I would have done it, but not as big. I'm a Cardiff City fan, and my brother was a huge Cardiff City fan. My dad's a Cardiff City fan, and I wore Cardiff City colours, but I didn't have Cardiff City jumpers all over. I didn't oversell it, but he had that community with him, and also he was the boy next door. Like he went to his local pub all the time, and that's how he. So they all knew him. He had the connection.
He was like a people champion.
When you were a kid in the 70s and 80s, you could go into a pub and see a football player or a famous rugby player in Wales. I remember Terry Holmes used to play rugby for Wales. His wife was a teacher in my school, and every now and again he'd pick it up. He was like scrum half for Wales, the national team, the national sport. And I live in a shitty little council estate, and no one goes near because if you park your car, you come back and there's no wheels left. And like he put up in his BMW, which was like which was weird shape back then, and it'd be Terry Holmes. You wouldn't believe it. Like you would never have that. You don't see that now. Because you get a football player, once he's 15, he's locked away in the academy. You never see him again. You can't relate. No young kid can relate to. They want the lifestyle and what they see on Instagram now. That gives them more of a closer connection. But even that's not real life. You can't relate to people anymore because they don't live the same life. They haven't been working class since they're teenagers because they're locked away in the academy. Even boxers now, even the boxers, they're taking them to Sheffield and they're turning them into world record machines straight away. So they don't have a relation with their community anymore like they would have back in the day. They're better fighters for it, they're more accomplished, and we're having a better run of amateur success because of that, but that's just the truth. But I think Ricky is in boxing is the last working class hero. I mean, from the get-go, where like Joshua, when Joshua beat Klitschko, his speech was so inspirational. It was fantastic. It was almost as good, if not better, than the fucking fight. And the fight was great. About telling kids, listen, it's not about being the best. You just have to persevere, and one day you might just make it. And it was like, who doesn't want to be a boxer? Who doesn't want to be the next Anthony Joshua now? And after that, Tyson Fury with the mental health stuff, all of a sudden now he's turned a whole nation who hated him, and everyone loves him now. He's like the darling of boxing. He's the cheeky chappy of British boxing and world boxing in America, in Vegas. They love him. And it's just finding our right persona. But Hatton was quite a phenomenon. He did it from the ground up, and that's very difficult to do. Josh Wallander was the closest thing to it, I think. Selling out Leeds Stadium is no mean feat.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, especially because Leeds not known for football. You get
a lot of boxers now. You get a lot of boxers aligning themselves to football clubs, but they do it too late. Once they win a title, then they start wearing their football colours. It's too late. Then you've done it. Like you got to build it early, and that's what. And selling tickets, like Josh Wallander sells tickets. Like I used to sell tickets, going round, leaving. I'm not going to say a barber, so don't take the piss because I got no hair, but like a barber, you leave like 10 tickets in the hairdresser, in the barbers, 10 tickets in the post office, 10 tickets in the pub, in the butchers, and with the poster, and ask them kindly if that's how you have to sell tickets. And it worked because then you forge relationships with people. And then people would buy tickets and they wouldn't come to your fight because they liked you. Because every time you go back to that, the day before the fight, you go back collecting the tickets. It was hard work, by the way. And they never sold any. You just say, you have to say, thank you for trying, thanks for that, I appreciate that. And they remember that. And then in the end, they would just buy a ticket off you. If they didn't sell a ticket, they buy one themselves and they wouldn't go. But they knew they helped you. And yeah, and that's what he did, Josh Warren, from early days. Go collecting tickets, collecting money, and people got to see him and speak to him.
Yeah, definitely. He did the hard way for Thornton. He definitely did the hard way. He became a
superstar. Yeah, but people know him then. They don't just go, let's go, what's Josh? He's from Leeds. I know Josh. I know him. I spoke to him. He came to my house collecting money. And it's a different connection. You never, and it's sort of, that's a dying art. But that's where Ricky Hatton was successful anyway.
Speaking about chains and boxing, what's your whole take on this whole social media YouTube boxing? The Logan Paul, Jake Paul, and the KSI. Is it a gimmick? Is it going to come and fade?
Well, I think boxing is the slut of all sports.
Really?
So, boxing is, yeah, it lets anybody in. Boxing will have sex with anybody. Boxing will sleep with anybody. You don't care. Boxing. It's all about making money. All about making money. Frank Warren was slagging YouTube boxing off and all that, everything. And so was Eddie Hearn laughing at it. And when Eddie Hearn did that fight in LA with
KSI Logan Paul.
Thank you. KSI Logan Paul. And then Warren was slagging it off. Eddie was going, well, and then but then as soon as Frank Warren had a chance to do Fury's brother against
Tommy and Jake Paul, yeah.
Jake Paul, the other Paul. As soon as he had a chance to do that, he was all over it. Couldn't wait. So excited. Yes, it's life-changing money because it is. So I don't know. But I think you just got to.
I get his money, but again, he's not dangerous, especially when I just thought it was the same when Mayweather fought, even though it was an exhibition fight, he fought the bigger one, Logan Paul. I was like, why fighting YouTubers?
No, but I didn't mind that because I wrote it actually. That's not what I didn't mind. But that's just an exhibition. They've been going on since time began. But it should have been on Sky One, not Sky Sports. That's what I would say, because it's not. But that's nothing. It's you just got to nowadays take everything with a pinch of salt. You got to. I think that's the way you got to do. Listen, Logan Paul hasn't boxed anyone worse than what Tommy Fury's boxed. The truth of it, he hasn't boxed any boxers, but Tommy Fury hasn't boxed anyone who's come to win. So you can argue about who have you boxed in. I boxed Nate Robinson. 5'9" basketball player, which is a freak of nature in itself. What a basketball player that is. A 5'9" playing in the NBA, but also in his 40s. And then he boxed another YouTuber, maybe, and then a UFC guy, whatever he's done. So he hasn't boxed any boxers. But he's just making money. I don't think he knows it until and they're calling fighters out, but that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, because it was ridiculous when what's that cruiserweight guy, Maurice Blade, was getting tight with Jake Paul was a call out, gimmick.
It's money, isn't it? I know, it's just ridiculous. But again, boxing is the slut of all sports. They'll do anything to make money. And
unfortunately, boxers, most of them are prostitutes to do anything for buck. No, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's just how it is. And more people will watch that fight than the other fight, the YouTube fights, and they watch other fights. So you just got to go. Listen, I'm commentating now in 2 weeks, a week Saturday, on the huge strongman fights. Eddie Hall versus Thor.
Yeah, that's him. Yeah. The world's strongest man. Okay.
But I think I think it might be registered as a professional fight, but it's not really. It's two guys. It's like a white collar fight, isn't it? But they're doing it for money. I don't know how much they're getting, probably more than I get.
I don't mind it when YouTubers fight YouTubers, like case of Logan Paul. I just don't like it when boxers fighting, YouTubers. That's when I think,
no one likes it, but I just think, in this, no, you just got to just accept it. No, it doesn't have no effect on the world scene or anything. That's the truth. It's just, you just got to think of them as little freaks and ages and not even worry about it. That's the way I look at it. Good luck to them. They're making money. They're not hurting nobody except each other. When they're making money, well, there's an opportunity there. I moan and groan about it, but if Jake Paul said, I want to fight you, and want to give me $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, $500,000, I don't care how big he is. I tuck my belly into my shorts, my little fat hairy belly, it is. And because, why wouldn't I? You know what I mean? It's that's the problem, see. So when it comes to making money, all of a sudden you go, David Hay did it with Joe Fournier. David is a world-class athlete who's fallen apart. Joe, I know Joe Fawley since he was 17, by the way, he used to work with me. But he hasn't boxed anybody yet. He's had a couple of journeymen and maybe some Mickey Mouse fights on Triller. And they had a spar with each other. I made money. That didn't upset me because it was what it was. It had no relevance in anything. They both knew what they were doing. David was never going to go full out on Joe. And that's just how it is. And they sold it that way. It's weird, isn't it? The boxing's weird like that. But I try not to worry about it now. It is what it is. And then and before, when it first started, I was in uproar and upset. And I thought, what am I getting upset for? It doesn't affect Errol Spence boxing, UGAS or I still get to watch Fury and Wilder 3.
Yeah, you still get the fights, the meaningful fights.
Yeah, Canelo still unifying the super middleweight division in record time. Josh Taylor unifies the world title. Let's not talk about the Castro fight because that solves it all again. But there's still things happening. Chocolatito's still boxing and still being a master. You know what I mean? Things like that. When that's going on, I can just forget of all the other shit.
Yeah, that was a good fight. Chocolatito Martinez fight. Chocolatito is Hall of Fame in my opinion. Hall of Famer. Speaking about recent events, I'll be honest with you, even though I'm a Fury fanboy, Fury is one of my favorite fight at the moment. I was surprised he saw at Wembley in white, 85,000. I was surprised. I knew it would be big. I knew about 50, 60, but I didn't think it would be AJ numbers. Because let's be honest, Fury's a star, but there's no AJ. So that just shows Fury definitely become a bigger star since the Wilder fights.
Well, Wilder sells. I think White sells a lot. It helps, but Tyson's the A side, and that's just how it is. And I think what's happened to in America again, the mental health stuff and all the rest of the thing that's gone on. He did that thing on ITV as well, that with the Furies or whatever it was, that helps massively. He's not a star, isn't he? And that's how it shows. And he's a big giant as well, and everyone wants to see it. So yeah. And again, events now are more corporate events than ever before. Everyone wants to go. I was there. That's what people want to say now.
Yeah, Instagram pictures, social media.
Exactly. Yeah, that's how it is. Yeah, that's how it works. Yeah.
Are you going to that fight yourself? You got a ticket?
I probably will. Yeah, but I'll see if I can get some work before I have to go and get a ticket.
Okay. But so at the moment, are you working for Sky at the moment? Or are you BT or just freelancing?
No, I've been freelance ever since I started. But I was aligned with Box Nation for a long time, and then obviously BT, and then I was doing stuff for Sky, and then the pandemic hit, so that sort of messed up my work a little bit. So so I won't work for BT again. I don't think. You never know, but I think that's sort of finished. And Sky maybe, but yeah. So I do stuff for some of those NTK shows and yeah, BBC 5 Live and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just being a freelancer. It's like being self-employed. You fit it around and you work for them. I'm doing the Commonwealth Games in July, which is looking forward to that. And yeah, that's how it works. Yeah, just walking around doing little bits. I do lots for Boxing Social, like a website thing, YouTube page.
Speaking of Boxing Social, has he left now? Rob Tebbit. I was surprised he left. He's not.
No, he's not. He hasn't been there for a couple of weeks. I don't know whether there's something going on. I'm not quite sure. To be honest.
Because I heard he's officially left. Him, Bam.
Yeah, someone told me about it. Someone went on the accounts or something on the tax thing, but I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get involved now. That's not my business, to be honest. Like Rob's a nice bloke. I like Rob. We get on really well, but that's not my business. I don't. That's his business and Boxing Social's business. You know what I mean?
Would you ever start your own podcast? Start your own.
No, maybe I've talked about it a few times. I've talked about it. I'm in talks now with somebody like another boxing guy who's a bigger name than I am, and we're thinking about maybe doing one, but we have to wait and see.
Yeah, because your arch nemesis got his own podcast. Prince Patel, your nemesis. He's got. I've seen some of his videos on YouTube. He's okay.
Good luck to him. But yeah. Listen, on that, mate, I gotta go.
Yeah. Thanks for the opportunity. About your plays is amazing. I love this chat. You're fascinating story. Absolutely fascinating. And you never know. Maybe another time. Maybe we can have another chat and we can talk about.
No problem. Yeah, message me in a few months or so.
All right. Anyway, thanks, guys. You take care. Thanks for watching our.
Bye.